Okay, welcome to the Pixel Art Workshop. I'm Kyle from UBC Game Development, and I'm going to be showing you a little bit about pixel art here. So I'd like to preface this by saying that I've never had any formal kind of art training, never taken very many art classes. Most of this stuff is going to kind of be just my experience of pixel art as it is. I've done quite a bit of pixel art. I've made quite a few projects, and I've had to draw things for them. I can't really say I'm the best. I'm not fantastic, but I should be able to show you some stuff on how to get started and give you some tips in improving with your pixel art. At first, I'll kind of go through a bunch of cool examples of pixel art in games that I absolutely love. We'll talk about what makes it unique, what makes it amazing, and then I will go. Then I'll show you how I'll draw something. Excuse me. I'll draw something for you right here live, and I'll also share with you guys a free pixel art kind of editor that you can follow along with and make your own thing too if you want. So welcome to the Pixel Art Workshop. Let's get started. So let me show you some pixel art that I absolutely love. So you might have heard of some of these games, or this might be your first time hearing about them, but there are some games that are famous for having amazing pixel art. Now, the resolution of the presentation, because I had to kind of steal this image and I couldn't do it very well, kind of betrays just how awesome the pixel art from this game, Hyper Light Drifter, really looks. So this is kind of a splash screen from the game. It's not really what gameplay itself looks like, but the rest of the kind of pixel art in the game kind of copies this style. So something that's unique about this style compared to other pixel art is that some pixel art will have a border, right? Right along this, it'll have a very thick border. This one doesn't. Also, another thing that's unique is the detail. So in some pixel art that we'll see later, you'll have this big cape, but there'll be lots of little detail kind of strewn onto it, right? And all those little details will kind of give it more color and flavor. Well, in Hyperlight Drifter, they don't do that. Instead, everything's kind of separated by these different colors. Like notice, for example, his cape. You can kind of tell what's the inside and outside of the cape based just on the color. There's a little bit of that detail right here that I'm talking about, but having big swatches that are just a solid color like that, you don't really see that in very many other games. But Hyperlight Drifter makes it look really beautiful. And the way that it does that is by having very specific and detailed outlines here. So there's no like black outline like itself that's different, but the shape itself adds a bit of texture, right? The way that you have this cloth kind of clumping there makes it look like a bit harder cloth. The way that it flows kind of freely and it's got all these extra notches makes it seem like it's lighter cloth, etc. And this scene itself is kind of like a good example. Uh, and it's kind of strange that I can call pixel art so beautiful when it parts of it are very low detail. Like for example, the eyes are just 4 pixels, right? And yet they can still make it look great. The next image that I'll show is a bit better. This is what the gameplay actually looks like. I wish, I kind of regret doing this in images. I realize now I should have done this with GIFs or videos to kind of show what all these things can look like. But this is the game itself. So there's a unit, or there's a character, a little text box. There's our protagonist that you'll control, and just look at how beautiful this is. So first, lots of big solid colors, and details are kind of separate in their own little swatches, but details are all very small and specific. Our protagonist is very few colors, relatively low resolution, but still looks very nice. Little bot following him around. And this is quite unique. You rarely ever see pixel art that looks beautiful, but also has very big swatches of colors, right? There isn't a strange gradient where it goes gray, less gray, more gray until it gets to black. It's just big things. Also, shadows. Pixel art shadows are quite rare, actually, because you have to project something onto the bottom, and it's weird to project things over with shadows. As you can see, this game has shadows that move around quite beautifully, actually. And from a coding perspective, that can be quite difficult. You might notice that this NPC here doesn't have a shadow underneath him, and that's probably why. It's because it's so difficult that you'll end up missing a lot of them. But things like the shadows on the trees, and things like this beautiful side. So this is off the map on the right here, but even though it's off the map and the player, there's nothing for the player to see, they still made it look beautiful with extra little and very unique details, right? When you think of a tree, you can tell this is a tree because of the shape of the leaves, right? You don't need a bunch of weird textures in here to make it a tree. But all these extra little details, and also the little, like, you can tell it's like an alien planet due to all like the little bright green things on pink leaves, right? But very unique, and I really like that. This is a kind of art style that if I could imitate, I would. But you have to be very careful about the shapes and sizes. So I would struggle a bit with this. Here is a bit of a GIF from it. It's the only GIF I have for it. One of the things that made Hyperlight Drifter specifically so good, and this GIF does not really show it, was that the animations had many, many frames. Very beautiful, specific animations. As you ran, as you dashed, you could see all of it and it would stick around. This is a GIF, so it has very few frames, so it doesn't look nearly as good. It looks kind of choppy. But normally, it's all very beautiful and specific, and you can see all these things. And always in the background, you can always look, and covered in the overgrowth, you see all these little secrets. There's always stuff to look at. Like, for example, you wouldn't even notice that this big thing on the right is like the big jaw of like some dead beast, right? Like, look at that, weirdly square. And then boat there. There's and all the while it's in the storm with lightning, and the lightning itself is even pixel art too, which it's pretty crazy to have pixel art effects. Okay, before there's too much flashing, I'm going to move on to the next one. So that was Hyperlight Drifter. That's one I really love. Now, to take a bit of a different approach, here's another game that uses way more smaller details in its pixel art. So this is Katana Zero, a game for 2019, one of my favorite games. And it had a bit more outline stuff and other aspects in it. So, for example, unfortunately, I wish I could show this in better resolution. But if we look at all the books on the side, if we look at like things up here, you can see there's multiple shades within it. Like there's like 10 shades within each kind of line, right? And even on the protagonist, there's lots of shades on the sash. There's lots of shades on the character, and lots of tiny details, right? So here, and in the light, yeah, the light is an amazing example of that. Bright yellow, dimmer, dimmer, and then practically gone, right? And then all those different shades just for that light. Yeah, it looks. It's very beautiful to have all that kind of detail there. One of the things that Katana Zero did well was that it had a lot of animations that went by really fast. So here's one scene from it. There's the protagonist jumping in air. And here's something actually I should have mentioned about Hyperlight Drifter. Notice this is the game. There's no UI. There's no button that says how many bullets you have, how much health you have, and how much everything you have. All of that is hidden. And only when you take damage does it show how much health you lost. Only when you shoot does it show how much ammo you have. And that was one of the other things that made Hyperlight Drifter so beautiful. They're actually coming out with a sequel to it soon, which I'm definitely going to play. But unlike that, Katana Zero, no, it shows you buttons. It shows you have a sword and an A. It shows how much time you have. It shows your health charge, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so it's a bit unlike that. Besides that, lots of smaller details everywhere that look quite nice. It's like a neon kind of thing. Fancy lights in different places. One thing that made Katana Zero very beautiful, and it's very hard to imitate, was that the lights worked on the sprites. So these sprites were drawn in pixel art, but then notice this guy, his right side is pink, because this pink light and green on the left is shining on his sprite. Well, you'd have to draw a new sprite for every kind of light that there could possibly have, unless you did something special with the programming and you added in a coding that would shade all the cells based on the light that was there. That was something else that Hyperlight Drifter, well, it did a little, but not particularly. But that is very unique to Katana Zero, and one of the things that makes it beautiful. Besides that, it's got, even though it is technically low resolution when you zoom in on the sprites, still have very beautiful things, nice art that it's drawn. It's a good solid example of what pixel art can really look like. Here's another scene. So I talked about the beautiful animations. Look at this. So this is as soon as you slash your sword through an enemy who's right above you, and all the blurs, all the like there's a straight line coming straight from him that goes across the screen to show there's marks to show that he's gone flying. He has his own animation. You have your own animation for any direction that you slash in, and those kind of things made it look really beautiful. The animation itself had many frames. Here's another GIF kind of from it. But overall, it's like a really good example of what kind of classic detailed pixel art can kind of give you. So next, moving on to another game. So all these are indie games so far, as you can probably tell, that you might have heard of, called Valhalla Bartender Simulator, or Cyberpunk Bartender Action. It's basically a game where it's simulated. You're like a bartender, kind of in like a cyberpunk bar, and you serve people kind of these drinks that you'll make yourself and all that kind of stuff, right? And that's kind of the whole point, is that you get to be like, a cool bartender and put stuff in there, and it's pretty fun. So the difference with this example is that it has these characters that take up a large part of the screen, and they're very detailed in general. Like, they got a lot of detail added in, right? So there's the background, there's some detail, not very much, and then there's the whole menu and all that, which all is drawn in pixel art as well, right? All the names of the stuff, and the reset, and the button presses, those are all done in pixel art. But the main thing was supposed to be the characters themselves. So this is one example, Dorothy or whatever. You can see just how many shades and details are in just the hair alone. Between the this is a robot character, by the way, which explains the lack of facial expression. But how many different shades are just present throughout the character? For this to be done in pixel art is pretty rare. Normally in pixel art, the whole point is that it's low resolution. So doing high resolution, really nice pixel art, looks very beautiful. You can see shading on the hands, bows, all that kind of shading all adds up. It makes it look quite beautiful. The game also has other parts. So here's another kind of video, or not video, another image of it. They added, more characters here, different highlighting, shading, that sort of thing. And then low resolution examples as well over here, with lots of shading, lots of that kind of stuff. But that's pretty much it for Valhalla Bartender Simulator. Looks very very nice character shading and all that stuff. So moving on, here's another game called Undungeon from actually, I think it was made in 2021. Actually, I'm not sure why it says 2016 down there. Yeah, it was. Sorry, I'm just going to quickly change that, or else it's going to bother me. This was in 2021, so very recent game. This is probably the most recent one that I'll have on here. Came out on Steam. Very beautiful pixel art environments. So all of these environments are all kind of drawn with very small, lots and lots of detail, but it still is certainly pixel art. And you can kind of see in the UI and all that stuff, it doesn't particularly look like pixel art at some points because it's so big, but all of the characters and sprites themselves are still like kind of pixely. And if you look up the artist who actually drew a lot of the stuff for Undungeon, you can see he draws a lot more specific pixel art stuff. I probably should have used another image here. This one doesn't seem to be very pixely, and other ones that I know show off that pixel art that I was mentioning very well. But yeah, I recommend going and checking this one out if you're more interested in this kind of style. Finally, another common example, Enter the Gungeon, if you ever heard of it. It's a pixel art shooter where you run through the dungeon. All done it with pixel art, with lots of animations, lots of cool little effects. One of the unique things about this is that all the effects were in pixel art. So as you can see here, they shot the gun and there's like a pixel art little thing there. He shot and then there's like a little pixel art flare coming up, right? The bullets are pixel art. When it hits this, it's pixel art. And even so much as when they shot, a little pixel art bullet shell would pop out and it would fall on the ground. And unfortunately, there's no example here. And it would roll around and have its own physics in pixel art. And that kind of thing was very unique to Enter the Gungeon, and quite beautiful too. I definitely recommend checking this one out. It has a beautiful style. This one does have borders on the style, though. I think this one doesn't have border, or it kind of does have some borders, but that's just like detailing. And Katana Zero has some edges, but not very many. But this one, it has solid black borders around most of the sprites, right? The environment doesn't, but all of the units do. One of the reasons why people will use black borders in games isn't just because it's an art style, but also because it helps the player differentiate what's the environment and what is a unit, right? What is something that you got to be scared of or you got to interact with, and what is just fluff? And you can actually notice that this the table, this crap on the ground, which is probably just the remainder of some explosion effect that happened there. Those don't have the black border because the player can't interact with them, right? But all the things that the player can interact with are much brighter. When you're making a sprite, if it's an environmental sprite, usually they use way dimmer kind of colors, less saturation. But if it's something that's like a bullet or like a unit, usually they'll try and make it a bit brighter to kind of signify it's something active. That's something that you don't just see in pixel art, but that you see in all game art in general. Like, I mean, for example, if you take a look at League of Legends, or like one of those games, what color do they make the ground? What color do they make the bushes? Now, what color do they make the other green things? Right? What color do they make other ground-related things, right? There's a hero called Ivern, who's green, and he's made of bushes or whatever, but he's a completely different green than the actual grass, right? And the reason why he's a completely different green is to help you see it. So that's one interesting aspect. So that's kind of it for my pixel art intro. If you have any questions about these games, want me to go back to any of these things, let me know. Or if you have any other ideas of cool pixel art games that you know that you want me to pull up, I'll pull up a screenshot from them and talk about them. Feel free to send that. These aren't the only games with good pixel art. Not in a long shot. There are so many, I couldn't possibly include them all in here. And if I could, I would talk about pixel art, or like I just go over different games for the whole entire hour and show you. I'd load them up and play it and show you what it actually looks like. But instead, sometimes the best way to learn is also to do. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to go through drawing a little sprite. I'm going to draw a little thing, and we're going to do it together. So I've never really drawn too much in front of other people with a timeline that often before. So I hope you'll forgive me if I end up not being able to finish in time, or if it looks a bit off. But we'll go ahead and do it anyway. So the first thing that you're going to need is a program. So you could use any art program technically, right? Someone could do pixel art in Photoshop, which I don't have installed, or they could do it in GIMP if you've ever heard of GIMP. It's it's a free but very feature dense program, and you could totally do that. And I mean, nothing would really stop you. But there are some programs. So, for example, one is a sprite, which lets you draw a bunch of stuff. It looks quite beautiful, as you can see here. And it's just made specifically for pixel art. The only issue is that you have to pay unless you know how to compile it yourself, which they made very hard, so I wouldn't really recommend it. But there are other ones that are also free and can help you. So first, for this workshop itself, if you want to follow along and draw your own thing while I'm drawing, you can use this one called Piskel, which is I'll answer that question in a second. Piskel is free and online. I'll just put a quick link to it there in the thing, and you can just draw whatever you want on it, so you don't have to download anything. Now, I don't think it's as good as a lot of the programs you can download. That's mostly just a for now kind of thing. So someone asked, do game designers use pixel art rather than vector because vector is used to ensure higher resolution? Okay, so one thing is that so the difference between vector and kind of scalar art and all that stuff is usually that vector is harder to make, scalar is easier to make. If people could, they'd use vector art for everything. But vector art also does have some what's the word I'm thinking of? Performance issues. Is that if everything's vector, the computer has to work a little harder in order to render it all. As opposed to scalar, where it can just say, okay, here's the image, boom, there it is. For the vector, it has to go, okay, what does the image look like? Well, there's a formula for it. Well, it has to do some math. But neither of those relate particularly to pixel art. When we're talking about pixel art, it is, sometimes it's quicker to use or to make, but in this case, it's almost always scalar. There's no way to vectorize pixel art because once you have a pixel art, if you want to make this bigger, there's no point in coding a formula that'll make it bigger and make it any size. You just zoom in. You can already see the pixels in it, right? So it doesn't really have too much to do with that. In my personal opinion, if you're good at art, making pixel art versus making real art, it'll be the same difficulty, take the same amount of time. If you're not as good as art or at art like me, I'm pretty good at pixel art because it lets me see exactly where, or not pretty good, but the reason why I choose pixel art is it lets me see exactly where, I went wrong, where things are going. That's kind of why I like to use it. But also personally, I just like the style of pixel art, and it might be partially because of nostalgia. I used to play those old Pokemon games that were all done in pixel art, and God, I loved it. Um, oh yeah, I didn't talk about Pokemon pixel art here either, but maybe I should have. Uh, but um, but yeah, I've always loved pixel art because of those, and so that's kind of why I choose to do it. If you're really good at vector art and all those kind of things, you totally can do that instead, and that then like no one like you're not going to lose any points for that. Like that'll still be pretty awesome. The main reason why I use pixel art is just because I like the style. But okay, so now I'll show you. So I mentioned this Piskel, which I shared with you guys. That's not the one I usually use though. The program that I always use to animate is something called Graphic Scale. So this is what it looks like. I will, okay, let me just move this chat out. I'll just create a new document. For this one, I think I'll do, let's do like a 100 by 100. You can change the size of it later using this program. If you're following along with Piskel, you'll probably have to figure out how to change the size of the canvas. Yeah, there is resize the drawing area. And here's how you kind of change the colors. If you're having any issue and you can't figure out how to do something, let me know and we'll do that. Okay. Or let me know and I can try and help you figure it out. So, blank canvas. We got to figure out what we're going to draw. Just 1 second. Okay, so blank canvas. Got to figure out what we're going to draw. So I'm doing this thing right now where I'll practice pixel art and try to get better by just picking one random little sprite thing. It won't particularly go in a game, but one thing to draw in pixel art every day, and trying to post one for it. Of course, I've failed and I haven't been able to do it every day. But for me, I like to pick just a small, simple object or maybe a character or something like that that you can just just draw and post later. So for example, maybe I'll show you a couple of these examples in Instagram.com/pixel post star. This is my my art Instagram. Now, as you can see, I'm not really truly an expert, but a lot of these things are random pixel art things that I've drawn. So for example, slice of pizza, and a frog that's also wearing an overcoat and looks super cool. Anyway, a fat frog. Amazing things. If you're interested in drawing frogs and food, you'll never run out of things to draw. But stuff like crystals, guys, this battery. Just pick one random object that you want to draw and draw it. Right. One issue with pixel art that I find a lot, which is very unfortunate, is that usually you'll draw it and then once it gets a bit bigger and enlarged, it looks all terrible. Like it isn't. There aren't very nice lines between it. That's because it's the way that Instagram renders it that isn't very good. It doesn't realize it's pixel art and it just tries to mess it up, which is why Instagram is not always the best for pixel art. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of them up here, but I'm just trying to pick something small and doable. So let's. What I'm gonna do, something I haven't done before. I'm gonna do a donut. Like I said, when all else fails, go to food. So first trick, this is true. Whoa, what just happened? This is true with any art. Look for a reference. No matter how good of an artist you are, I mean, no matter what you do, having a reference can really help. You don't have to follow the reference point by point, but at least so you can look and say, oh yeah, that's right, that's what it looks like. A donut is a ring with a hole in the middle. That's right, I almost forgot. But to get an example and say, oh, I see. So pink sprinkles, okay, kind of dripping off. It's like the icing is like a quarter way up and sometimes drips a little bit down. and it drips, in the hole, it's fully icinged. The sprinkles can be intermittent or very, like, lots of them as well. Oh my God, this makes me hungry. But anyway, yeah, so it kind of gives you a good idea. And I mean, if you think about it, even the old classic painters like the Mona Lisa was drawn from a reference, right? So no, I mean there's no issue with using it. So then I'm just gonna open this image in a new tab. I didn't really have to, and this let me zoom in and inspect the donut. Okay, so what I think I want to do is I'm gonna draw a donut, but it's gonna be more tilted away from the screen. So it's going to be something like, this. Well, that's maybe not that simple, but first I'll start by drawing some construction shapes. I don't usually do this, but I'll do it anyway. So some pixel things come with this tool. So let's take a look. Okay. So one thing is that for this donut, I'll probably make it flush straight to the screen. It'd be cool to make a perspective drawing of a donut where it's like kind of tilted, but sometimes perspective drawings can be tough in pixel art. So that'll kind of be like the main. Oh, hold on. So what I want to do is I'm just going to kind of turn it into. What do you think? What do I think is going to be best for me? Maybe something like this. I'll try this, and if it gets messed up, I'll have to restart. So you'll have to. I mean, I'm not have to, but I'll probably restart. So you'll have to bear with me. No, I don't like that. I'm just gonna. There we go. Okay, so now I've got an idea for the basic shape of my donut. I'll probably make the top ring smaller than the bottom one, and all that stuff. But basically, this is the construction shapes that I'll be drawing my donut onto. So yeah, some kind of ring. You know what? Oops, I set it to white. Actually, I have to do this. There we go. There, boom, donut. And then maybe there's also going to be like a see through it. Yeah, look at that. Donut with a hole in the middle. So now what I'd like to do, so I could just start drawing over this, right? I can grab the pink for the top. I'll probably make a pink donut just because, that's like the classic donut color. I could just start coloring this in, etc. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on another layer. So if you're not too familiar with too much art or digital art and you're drawing with it, a lot of artists love to use these layers where they'll be separate parts of the drawing. So for example, one that has. Oops, sorry about that. Oh my God, I wish I could get it to stop cutting out, but it seems like it's a bit my headset is on the fritz today, so I hope I hope you'll bear with me and that it hasn't happened too much. But so I have different layers. I have this layer 1 that'll have my construction shapes, and layer 2 that'll have more donut stuff on it. So sometimes when you're drawing, you'll separate things into a lot of layers, sometimes not so much. The reason why artists really love layers is because it lets you draw over things without disrupting them. So for example, I have layer 1 and layer 2. If I draw on layer 2, right? Okay, so I just drew over all that stuff. Okay, there it all is, right? I can actually just make the stuff on layer 2 disappear, or just the stuff on layer 1 disappear, right? And even moreover, if I try to erase this, I won't erase what's on layer 1. I'll only change the stuff on layer 2. It's kind of like having a stencil there, right? That you can look at and change stuff for. So this could be useful. Let's say you have a character and you have the hair, right? And you don't want to have to, like, you're going to have to erase the hair like multiple times as you're redoing it, the same way I'm erasing this icing. And when you do that, you don't want to erase the rest of the character's head, right? You want it all to fit together. Well, in that case, you can use layers, and that way you can just draw the head without the hair, and then that kind of thing. So next, I got to pick the colors. I'm going to pick a really appetizing pink. So in you know what? Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a little splotch of this color on my board because I have this program is set up so that whenever I right click on a color, it'll give me that color. So that way I can just paint kind of like like have a bunch of splotches of it and right click on it and grab what I want. Then I'm going to need a donut color. Something like that would be a good start. So first, I'm just going to draw regular brown donut, regular pink icing, and then I'm going to add some highlights and textures to it to make it a bit better. Okay, so let's start with the bottom of the donut. So I pretty much just want to trace this circle, I think, for the bottom in general. Sometimes pixel art things look very good when they're clean, other times not so much. The reason why I'm not really tracing it perfectly is because, well, looks like it is going to be a problem. So I'm plugging in the headset. I'm switching to something better. There we go. And then hopefully that won't happen again. Uh, okay, so just trying to draw on the bottom of the donut, and I'm going to draw this part too. So so normally when I used to do pixel art, I would do it with like a lot of black outlines around it, uh, similar to the Under the Gungeon style. But now I don't really do that so much. I kind of prefer to have not the black outline. Sometimes I'll have it like a little bit or something. So so let's see. So if that's my donut, I could even make my donut less circular than the hmm, yeah, I could. Less circular than the construction shape. No, I shouldn't. Uh, but we'll see. I can always change it later. There's a lot of work and rework and that kind of thing. So you might be saying, well, Kyle, if you have the circle tool, why are you bothering doing all this? Oh, by the way, I'm also just using a mouse and keyboard for this. A lot of fancy artists will have cool art pens and tablets and things like that, which are great, and I'm sure they help a ton. But sometimes, if you get really good with a mouse, then it's the same thing, right? The only reason why you're good at art with a pen or with like a pencil is because that's how you kind of learned it growing up. Well, if you just learn it with mouse and keyboard, not only are you going to be better at this, but you're also going to be better at other things with a mouse and keyboard. Okay, but you might be wondering, Kyle, why aren't you using the circle tool? You have a circle tool. Why are you filling that in by hand? Well, I want to give it a bit of roughness, right? So even now, if I can get rid of this construction shape, you can kind of see it's not a perfect donut. It's not a perfect circle. It's kind of got a little edge to it, and it's not really that even, and that's kind of realistic, right? Like I mean, you wouldn't expect a donut to be absolutely perfect. Okay, so basic donut kind of done, but we need more info. We need more details here and that kind of stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to draw. Hold on. Well, first maybe I'll add a little bit here, a little bit up there, just to smooth it out a little. There we go. Um, so the first thing I want to put something here in this donut hole to show that it's not just the infinite void of space through here. There actually is some more donut. So I'm starting to use a little shading, and this isn't exactly what like, oh, look at that, man, one click and it's beautiful. But a little bit darker to show that it's not so much in the light and that it's a bit of a different thing. There we go. How about that? Oh man, see, by the end of this, I'm gonna be so hungry. I'm gonna immediately storm off and buy a donut. Uh, man. That's one downside to often drawing things like food. An upside is that there's always more food items to draw. The downside is that if you love food like I do, you'll have trouble not eating what you draw. Anyway, so now I'm just going to draw a little bit of detail here on the icing. I remember the icing on one of these, it drips a little, right? And if we look at some of the other examples, yeah, it does. I mean, and that's part of what makes it a donut too, is that the icing isn't perfectly even, unlike on a cake. Yeah, look at that. There's a little. It's not always perfect. I'm gonna add. Well, maybe you know what? Maybe that's a bit extreme. I just wanted to be a little rough there. You know what? Maybe that's even good. One thing is, you're always going to be tempted, or at least I always am with pixel art, to make things perfectly symmetrical. Like, okay, I got drip here, drip here, drip here, make them all the same space away and make them all. But sometimes you kind of need things to be discordant. or by discordant, I mean a bit different. And that's why, see this right side of the donut isn't really symmetrical with the left side. Okay, awesome. Now it's looking really donutty, and I'm liking that. But before we do the sprinkles, let's try and add some detail. So if this was if this was in the Hyperlight Drifter style, they wouldn't add any shading around here. They wouldn't add any extra little detail. But if instead, where did I put that? Hold on, let me find where I put my slides. Yeah, here it is. And if we look at that Hyperlight Drifter style, yeah, there's no extra little textures in there. But instead, if we look closer at the Enter the Gungeon style, lots of little textures, highlights, little bits, lots of little bits. I'm gonna draw the little bits because usually whenever I draw things like this, I'm missing some part that makes it not as good. But I might do just a tiny bit more orange because this was baked. Oh yeah, you can see just a tiny bit more orange made a big difference. Next, so if we look at the bread of a donut, right? It's rough. It's rough. It's got little bits there, and some parts are lighter, some parts are darker. I'm gonna try and capture that. So I'm gonna take some of this and I'm just gonna make it a little darker. So if you're not familiar with colors in games, oops, I did that, and all that kind of stuff, you might know that there's RGB, amount of red, green, and blue in color. There's a hue, there's the saturation, and then there's the I don't know what V stands for, like the brightness. And then there's this one that I really like. Actually, this one is hue, saturation, and brightness. So saturation is how gray it is, right? The light is how, just how bright it is, and the hue is the color. Between those three things, you can kind of pick anything. Now, you could actually do the same thing. You can get this exact same color using RGB just by messing with the values, but that's really hard for a human to kind of understand. I don't think, if I want light blue, I really want lots of green and lots of red and a little bit of, no, you think I want blue and then I want it light. But anyway, so here I'm using this, and one of the good things about it is that I can see the values itself. So I can see that this is at a 52 right here. And oh, and by the way, this RGB with 255 on each value, and this with 255 on each value, that's just how good any monitor can do with color. No monitors are going to have more in between colors than that. They might have more pixels, like way more, but I don't think having more bytes in color will actually make a difference. Because if you increase the resolution, you can mix color anyway. But anyway, so I'm just going to turn down the darkness a little bit, and I'm actually going to make it a tiny bit more red. Well, maybe not. Oops. Let me undo that. Well, first I'm going to save this just by creating a little splotch. You can also drag these into like a palette and have like a palette, but I'm not really too much a fan of that because I always forget and I never use it anyway. I just like to right click and grab it right away. So I'm going to get a little bit darker, and I'm going to add a little bit of red just because I noticed that see it's like bright yellowish beige there, but then right down here it's kind of crispy, like a red crisp, right? Now that's of course because donuts are fried in oil normally. Where was I? Hold on, let me check to see if there are any questions that I haven't been rattling on for. Okay, no, we're good. If you do have any questions on the way, or you want to ask anything, even if it's unrelated, feel free to just send a message and I'll answer it. Crap. I have to reset this. I had the color and then I deleted it. Okay, maybe that's a bit too much. You can also click, or I mean, I can click here and just change the color. There we go. Okay, so I kind of like that. Let's see kind of what crispness to follow. Okay, so on the edges a lot, it makes sense that things get cooked more in the corners. So it's going to be something like maybe this. Actually, for that, I just have it darker. I don't think I want it to be that much darker. There we go. And I'm just going to create little bits of texture. What I could even do, I can even use a tool up here to make it really intermittent. Nope, that's not what I want. There we go. You can kind of paint on a texture that way. I don't think that I'll be doing that though. Okay, let's just add a little here, a little bit here. It's good when you're adding details to kind of help show the shape. Like we know this is a cylinder, and this doesn't really show the cylinder too well, but some little details, eh, they're not turning out too well. They're not looking as nice as I'd like. So maybe I'll just intermittently spit a little bit of oil around. So I'm not going to put any near the icing because we're gonna later when I shade it, that's when I'm going to add all the stuff to the icing. I do see that I've only got 20 minutes left, so I'm going to try and finish this donut in time. Okay, little details. Going quick here. But yeah, lots on the bottom and lots on this ridge here. Let's take a look. Okay. All right, so next, something I'm going to want to do is these little drips look okay, but sometimes it's a bit weird. You can't really tell that it's dripping. So I'm actually going to add an edge to show that this is the edge of the donut, and everything that's off the edge is that. Or maybe you know what? I'll actually shade the drips in a bit of a different color. There we go. Look at that. I'll. There we go. There we go. There we go. Nope. Maybe I need a little bit more ice in here anyway. Just to even it out. And then I'm going to need a bit more. Actually, these I should probably make a bit higher. There. Now you can kind of see even like the edge of the donut and that kind of thing. Maybe I'll just put a couple little pixels around here. Yeah, this needs to be a bit more even. Maybe I need a little bit. Okay. Okay, so we're making progress. The next thing I'd like to do is show, so if you look at a donut, this part is way higher than the rest of it. But right now, this donut could be flat right on top. So in order to show that, I'm going to shade it a little. Right up around here. So as you can see, I'm trying to showcase that it's got like a bit of shine up there. And then if I can, I want to add a little darkness, or well, hold on, down here. So, well, actually, maybe that's not particularly what I should do. Now that I'm looking at it, I think I might prefer just to create a little bit of shine on top. Because if we think about it, like if you picture in your head an actual donut, I'm just going to save this. I'm just going to save this color. And this one. There we go. If we think about it, an actual donut, yeah, this part is a bit higher. So what I'd like to do, I want to have some shine up there. It still does end up looking a little flat. Maybe there's another way I can fix that, but for now, I'm just gonna keep going, just for the sake of time. Uh, yeah, this donut's probably not gonna be perfect, but it'll be good enough in 15 minutes. Yeah, keep in mind, I'll probably be working on this donut right up until the end. So if you do have any questions, don't be afraid to ask now before we're out of time and I gotta hop off. I do have to leave right at the end, so ask questions now if you can. Or if you find me on Discord, I'm part of the Discord server. You know, Calvin Winkoop. You can probably send me a message there too if you have any questions afterwards. Okay. This does look a bit too bright, so what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna turn that up a little. Oh, oops. No, not at all what I wanted to do. I wanted to turn you down. There we go. Maybe for this one, I actually want it to be up. And then a little bit of a darker hue on the other side of the bump. Oh, no, not that though. I just want it to be like 65. And this right here, I'll do this. This right here, I'm just going to soften it out. Yeah, I kind of like that. For some reason, it still looks kind of flat. I wish I could kind of fix that, but well, maybe there'd be a better way to fix that. But you know, I think it's pretty fine. What I might do is all along the edge is shade it a little bit more. No, I think I want to shade it like this. So if I kind of shade it all along the edge and also along this this ring here, it'll kind of show that it's going in a bit. Maybe. Yeah, okay, I kind of like that. And then I'll also add this a bit here, all along this side. Okay, awesome. I think as far as donuts go, this is an okay donut. There's a lot of little bits. Like I mean, this it looks a bit spongy down here. It's not exactly what I was going for. And up here, I mean, the highlighting is cool, but it doesn't really show the height that I was going for. I might even just shave off like an edge here. Oh yeah, there we go. That actually looks better. Oh crap. Uh, if you shave off a little, kind of just to show that it's going in, uh, because now our perspective can kind of tell it's a curve, and then maybe a little bit of this. Hmm. Yeah, to show that the icing is smaller than the donut itself. That might help a little. What I might do is actually brighten this a little, just so that it looks less spongy. Maybe more. Because those holes are like it looks like it's a Swiss cheese donut. That's not really what I'm going for. Uh, okay, 10 minutes for sprinkles. All right, I'm pretty content with that, I think. If I had to eat that donut, I would probably survive. So I'm gonna add another layer now though for the sprinkles. Okay, so if we're looking at sprinkles, we got bright colors: green, blue, orange, white, and green, all in cylindrical little tubes. So I might just be tempted to grab some bright colors here and just fire away. So one thing though is that they're always straight. So I might just use a tool here to make sure that my flicks are all straight. Then I'm going to put like 3 here. Sometimes it's really hard to make things random. Like, I mean, the sprinkles on top, they should be random. But when you're thinking about it, doing something random just in your head, it's pretty tough. I'm going to choose a very bright red. Out of the sprinkles, it seems like there's actually a ratio of green to blue to red to white, right? There's way more blue, not nearly as much green, and less red. If you think about the most appetizing colors, that's because like green isn't a very candy color, right? And sprinkles are of course a form of candy. So I think I want less green and more. Oh, there we go. Now if I just add some light blue, and also they can be overlapping over each other too. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Uh, and I feel like I need some bright color. You know, maybe orange. Never really been a fan of the sprinkles on donuts anyway. I mean, if I'm there, I'm really there for like the soft fried, you know, dough and sweet icing. Not really the toppings. That's just me though. That's looking okay. Maybe I need a couple more up here. Oops, what am I doing? It seems I've activated some line mode that I don't want. White, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just gonna make them. I'm not gonna make them pure white. I'm gonna make them white with like a little bit of red. There. So I could have just made them pure white, but the main reason why I didn't was because our background is actually white. So if I wanted the background to be transparent, I'd have to pick a different white for it or something like that. But you can just like, I mean, that doesn't mean you can't use white at all. I see the white just doesn't fit. That looks pretty good to me, except for the fact that some of the sprinkles are too long and other ones are not long enough. Okay. Okay, and boom, we got a donut. Then and I must say, that is a pretty good donut. I'm only like, I mean, I can see there's a lot of things that are wrong with it, and a lot of things that are quite a bit hard to improve. Yeah, you know, uh, there are some parts of it that I have trouble improving just because my lack of skill, particularly. But I think if this donut was there, I mean I'd eat the donut and I'd probably be fine. And the coolest part is we can. Oh, actually, wait, I messed something up. There we go. So because we did that in the layers, let's say we don't particularly want sprinkles, we don't need to have them. We can just do it without sprinkles. So next I'm probably gonna do, I'm gonna take this and post it on the Instagram, or wherever it is. Oh, here it is. But I'm gonna add it with multiple slides, the same way I did this, right? And one slide's gonna have sprinkles, the other one isn't, and that way I can, I almost get 2 free images just for the price of one. Uh, Something's wrong with this, actually. It's too thick. All right, so that's pretty much it for the pixel art workshop. Yep, we went over a bunch of cool game stuff, and then I showed you pixel art that wasn't nearly as impressive as that. But yeah, so one of the reasons why I like, excuse me, why I prefer graphic scale over some of the other ones is because it lets you do animations. Sprite is also good for animations. The only problem with Sprite is that you have to pay for it. But so see how I could have this one frame, and then I could add another frame to the right, and then I can make an animation or like a GIF that continues. So what if it's like the donut spinning? I can make the donut spin. See, I can do it. I have the power of donut powers. Anyway, I'm gonna erase that because actually maybe I'll have like just a small darker border. Oops. All right. So hold on. Why isn't this even? There, now it is. So another thing, now that I got that done, I can probably delete the layer here that has my construction shapes on it. As soon as I fix this. There we go. Yep, so the whole time these construction shapes were there dutifully, and they have done their duty, so they are now being deleted. Boom. Okay. If you guys have any questions, any comments, anything like that, feel free to send them in now. Only got about 5 minutes, and then I gotta hop off. So. Oops. Yeah, yeah. That is one issue about the layers is that now that I have them, I can't move them both at once. I have to move the sprinkles and the donut. But you can combine layers too. Like if I just grab this layer grab it. Oh yeah, this app that I'm using is called Graphic Scale. It's free and it's awesome. The only thing I don't like about it, but the only thing I want in it would be if there was a tool that would automatically shade or brighten stuff. Like for example, if I could just say, okay, anything my mouse goes over, I want you to increase the brightness of it by 1. And then I can just mouse over and make like a bright streak across all the pixels. I think they call it like a lighten or like a burn tool. Maybe this might have that if I go to option. No. But Sprite and all the other pixel editors I've tried, they don't have that either. That's like a Photoshop thing, I guess. But Photoshop isn't good for pixel art anyway, or at least in my opinion. You might find it good. But the thing about Sprite though is that if you can figure out how to build it, because they provide the source code for it, right? You can mod it as much as you want. So for me, someone who knows coding quite well, I could make a mod that gives exactly what I want, the darkening, the lighting thing. Now, the only issue with that is that I'm a very busy man and I don't really have time for that jazz. So I'm just going to keep using graphic scale until I find all the time. Yeah. Oh, man. All right. Last chance for questions. If you got any more, type them in because I'm about to hop off and grab a donut before my next meeting because, yeah, this is pretty good. Oops.
All right. Before you have to go, we would like to once again thank you, Kyle, for being here today with us and share a lot of insights about game development, about the career, and especially about the pixel art as well. And for me, your donut doesn't look flat at all, but maybe that's just me, but I like your donut. We wish you all the best in the future, and we will make sure to put all our knowledge today into good use. And thank you so much again.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Yep. I think that's all for my workshops for this conference. But don't be afraid to reach out either if you want me to do more workshops or other stuff, or in the future, or if you need help with game projects, that kind of thing. I will. I guess we'll call it there, and I'll hop off now. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and thank you for having me here at the PT conference or PT something conference. Anyway, yeah. All right. Thank you again, and I'll see you all later.
So with that, this concludes the first day of the game developing conference. Hopefully everyone was able to learn some new things and have some fun listening to Kyle Van Winkoop's presentations. Once again, we wish to thank you all for your participation throughout the event. Make sure to sign on June 27th at 11 p.m. for the second day of the conference. Keep up the excitement.
Thank you all.